Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today, I thought it'd be fun to read through some of your predictions, some of your wish lists for the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal. You all know I like including you in my videos and kind of including some community discussion in my videos. I normally do this for Nintendo Directs, but as a lot of us are expecting the Switch 2 to be revealed this year, I thought now would be a good time to kind of just read through what you guys want to see from the reveal presentation specifically. How is this going to go down? Will it be like a 3-minute trailer like before with the Switch where, you know, we see the hardware, we see a couple games? Will it be a full direct where they actually talk about stuff and give us like price and release date? What form will this take, and what do you guys want to see? That's what we're talking about today. Of course, if you did not comment on my community post, you can still comment on this video, and maybe if this does well, I'll do a follow-up video if you guys really like it. But with that all said, let's get into it. Alrighty, good Monday morning to you all. If you are watching this video on a Monday morning, I made a community post a few days ago asking you guys to kind of lay out your wish list or how you think this is going to go down when it comes to the Switch 2 reveal. I made a community post and I got a lot of responses. I have actually not read through these yet, so this will kind of be fun, just kind of reacting to them in real time. Starting off with the top comment here from the Obster. They said, I believe in a direct-like presentation to be revealed next week for that week. Now, this was posted 4 days ago, so they're saying they think that the Switch 2 reveal will be this week. I'm going to assume it'll be on the 19th. In this presentation, they'll introduce the trailer, which will be a bit like the Switch 1's trailer, just with a prelude and some words afterwards. It'll show how the Switch 2 is the Switch, but more advanced. It'll probably show off whatever specific gimmick they have. It won't be a completely console-changing one, but it'll be the hook of the console. The trailer will show Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, the first look at Pokemon Legends ZA, hints at the next Mario Kart and 3D Mario, as well as glimpses of Monster Hunter Wilds and Elden Ring. They'll give it an early 2025 release window, but announce that there will be a Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it's called, a Direct, that will be held soon. So I like what you're getting at. I agree with a lot of this here, actually. I do think that this reveal for this console will probably be a bit more extensive than the 3-minute trailer we got in 2016, like you're saying here. Maybe not like that much longer. Maybe just Koizumi or someone else from Nintendo coming out and saying like, hey, this is the new console. Here's what we're going for with this thing. Here are a couple of games, but mostly just that similar lifestyle kind of trailer where we see people playing it. We see glimpses of games, and I agree that Prime 4 Beyond, if that is cross-gen, makes a lot of sense. Legends EA, I'm still not convinced it is cross-gen, but we'll see what happens with that. It is weird we haven't seen it yet. Mario Kart, that totally makes sense to be there. 3D Mario as well. And then Monster Hunter Wilds and Elden Ring, I actually think both of those are very likely candidates if they're going to have the you know, staple third-party support in there. I think Monster Hunter Wilds is the most likely. I would also add Call of Duty to that, though, personally. I think Call of Duty, since we know Switch 2 will have Call of Duty, just makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I definitely like what you're getting at there, Obster. I like how you kind of laid it all out for us. Next up, we have a Pikachu Lover here who says they definitely want to see the next 3D Mario, as well as hopefully the next Luigi's Mansion game, too. 3D Mario, I think everybody's in agreement. We will see, like, probably the first game we're going to see running on Switch 2 will be 3D Mario, right? Luigi's Mansion is interesting because if you look at Next Level's game, like, dev cycle, they're actually kind of on, like, a 3-year dev cycle for their games. If you look back to Dark Moon, which came out in 2013, 3 years later, we got Federation Force. 3 years later, we got Luigi's Mansion 3. 3 years later, we got Mario Strikers Battle League. So, theoretically, 2025 could be the year of a new Next Level Games game. I think it's a little too soon, though. Despite that very clear pattern of 3-year dev cycles for Next Level, I think Luigi's Mansion 4 is going to be their biggest game yet. Obviously, I think they're going to really try to push what the Switch 2 can do with that thing. And I also don't know if Luigi's Mansion 4 is a great year one title, especially in a year where we're talking about, you know, 3D Mario for sure, and then maybe even Mario Kart on top of it. Luigi's Mansion, I feel like, sits better as a second-year title, but it's definitely possible. I mean, based on those dev cycles, and even with Mario Strikers Battle League, I mean, that game was clearly kind of underbaked, right? So I assume they've been working on Luigi's Mansion 4 since probably 2020, 2021 at the latest, right? So that game's probably pretty far along in the development. I just don't know if it'll be like reveal trailer of the console material, right? But I mean, I would love that. Luigi's Mansion 3 is awesome, and I can't wait for 4, which I do think will be pretty early in the life cycle of the Switch 2. My64 said, honestly, the next 3D Mario being open world, Super Mario Maker 3D, that's interesting. Luigi's Mansion 4, new UI, and themes. Those last two I think are very interesting because that is an easy way for them to really show that this console is immediately different from like a visual perspective, not just the hardware, but like the software and OS as well. Because, you know, I don't think anybody's really hoping that the Switch menu comes back, even though it's kind of pretty fast and snappy for like the actual home screen. No one really wants it to come back. We want more of that Nintendo flair, so to speak, on the Switch 2. So a new UI as well as themes is a pretty great way to show that, I think. As for the games, I mean, talking a little bit about 3D Mario, I mean, the idea is definitely that it's going to be open world, right? Like, it's going to follow up what Bowser's Fury started, and that was, you know, kind of just an open zone 3D Mario game. Pretty small zone, but still bigger than anything we had seen before. The next mainline 3D Mario will probably be I'd imagine maybe not as big as like Breath of the Wild, but like it's going to be fully open, I assume. And I'm not sure how to feel about that. Like I think it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to try that out, and it'll be great to get an open world 3D Mario. At the same time, I'm so like conditioned to like level based 3D Mario. You know, it's going to be a little weird seeing how they actually implement that and seeing how it works. But I trust the team over there. I think they know what they're doing, so I don't really have any fear. It's just going to be a little weird getting adjusted to not entering a level, I guess, with the 3D Mario game. Super Mario Maker 3D is really interesting. I don't think they would do that and also reveal the next 3D Mario, but a new Mario Maker is interesting because I don't even know if we'll get another 2D Mario Maker, to be honest. After the, I would say, by Nintendo standards, relatively soft sales of Mario Maker 2, I believe that game sold about 7 million copies. That is not like the best, right? I think they probably expected that game to do a lot better. And now that we've gotten Mario Maker 2, it's full of content. I mean, where do they really go from there? You're saying Mario Maker 3D here. I don't know if Nintendo would want to do that because the appeal of Mario Maker is how just intuitive it is, right? It's very easy to make levels in Mario Maker. You add 3D to that, it just inherently gets way harder for casual people to just jump in and make a quick level, right? I think Dreams from Sony had a lot of that issue where it was basically that's an engine, right? And you have to like actually develop a level in like a game. Mario Maker is very easy to just jump into and just place down some tiles. You won't really be able to translate that well to 3D. And even if we got a Mario Maker 3 that is just 2D games, right? I guess if they could somehow implement Wonder, that would be the obvious thing to do. But I would prefer if for that we just get Wonder 2, or something like that in like a year or two. I think that would make a little bit more sense. Luigi's Mansion 4, we already talked about. That's I think that's definitely possible, but I would still lean towards happening later. But I like what you're getting at here, my 64. Jason MG says, I would say they should allow a full 6 months after the initial reveal trailer for the actual release. So maybe come out next April and reveal it this month. I'm in complete agreement. I think 6 months is pretty much the minimum. I guess you could say 5 months, but I do believe 6 months is basically necessary if they're going to properly market the next 3D Mario, right? And we still haven't had like proper marketing for Metroid Prime 4, if that even is a Switch 2 game. I know some people still don't think it is. I'm like 50-50 on it. I lean towards it being a cross-gen game that will launch with Switch 2, or not at launch, I should say. I think Prime 4 will release after the Switch 2, but be on both consoles, if that makes sense, like we had with like Twilight Princess back in the day. But I do think 6 months is about that proper time so they can really market the console, but also the games. So even if they announce it now, I would say the earliest, right, would be like mid-March that we see this thing, but it's somewhere in that March to May range. But April, I think that's a good call if they announce it now, or even in October, right, like some people are expecting. April just feels like a kind of good month to release this thing. Having fun with Elijah said here, I think it won't be revealed until after Christmas. The reason I think this is, why sabotage one last holiday sales before going all out? It worked with the Wii U because no one was buying that. With the Switch, it is doing very well of showing off a new console, but destroy any chance of people buying a Switch for Christmas. It makes sense to hold off on the next console reveal because this is the Switch's last chance for holiday sales. Nintendo doesn't want to miss out on that. So I see this comment a lot, and I'm not trying to call you out here, Elijah. However, the not sabotaging holiday sales thing is so like, it obviously comes from a place of people not understanding how the industry works. Like you say here, showing a new console will destroy any chance of people buying a Switch for Christmas. That is just simply not true. It might make a couple people decide not to, but the vast majority of people that would be buying a Switch in 2024 are not going to be the market buying the Switch 2 in 2025, right? Like, they're not the same consumer base. The people that will buy a Switch this year will not be buying a Switch 2 until 2030, probably. And you say it worked with the Wii U because no one was buying that. The 3DS still sold extremely well in 2016 with one of its best-selling games ever with Sun and Moon. So the 3DS sales weren't hurt because of the Switch announcements. And, the Switch is a successor to both the Wii U and 3DS. And like I said, the 3DS still kept selling very well that holiday season. Announcing the console is not like this boogeyman that's going to scare everybody away from buying a Switch. People keep commenting that on videos, and I do think it just comes from a place of not really understanding how the industry works, to be honest. I'm not trying to be mean, but like, they are not going to not announce the console because they're afraid of holiday sales being weakened. In fact, we actually heard that from Furukawa himself, and I believe the May investor meeting, where he said, even if we have to sacrifice short-term profits, we want to set up the Switch 2 as best as possible for success. Basically saying, they're okay with announcing it, even if it means that Switch sales might be hurt a little bit. But even then, we've seen time and time again that announcing a new console around the holiday season really doesn't affect console sales the way people seem to think it does for some reason. Metroid Jones here says, Mario Kart 9, in parentheses 10, I like you for calling that out. Thank you. People always say Mario Kart 9. It's Mario Kart 10. Tour is 9. People don't want to admit it, but it is. 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4, new Monolith Soft IP, thank you, you're the first person to mention that, as well as Switch Sports Deluxe. For third party, probably Monster Hunter, some Call of Duty games, and Final Fantasy VII Remake/Rebirth. I hear that 7 Rebirth doesn't even function properly on PS5, so it would take some effort to get a good version on Switch 2. Yeah, Rebirth is interesting. I've seen a lot of posts recently about how that game is going to be like a PS5 Pro showcase. I have not played Rebirth yet. I love 7 Remake though, so I'm curious to see like how true that is. Is Rebirth really struggling on PS5? I know Dragon's Dogma 2 evidently didn't run great on PS5 as well, and I believe even from like the Gamescom demos we've heard, Monster Hunter Wilds apparently not running like that great on PS5, I believe. So maybe Capcom and Square Enix need to get their act together, get the optimization going for Switch 2. But in terms of the first party stuff there, new Monolith Soft IP, I would love that. I don't know if that's like reveal trailer of the console material or if that's like the first big presentation. Like when we saw Xenoblade 2 for the first time, that was in the big January presentation, but I mean, that'd be very cool. It's just a little harder because if they show a new Monolith Soft IP in this reveal trailer, to me that means they basically have to have a follow-up thing like either in that same presentation or within like a week saying what the games they showed actually are, because with the Switch trailer we saw, you know what, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, 3D Mario, Skyrim, like these are all things that were known quantities or like things that we could, you know, say like, okay, well, this is obviously a new 3D Mario. A new Monolith Soft IP, that's a little harder to say. I guess if it looks very similar to Xenoblade, that's close enough, right? People would just be like, oh, it's a new Xenoblade. But I'm not sure if that's something they really want to show in the reveal trailer, although I love your thinking. I want to see that new Monolith Soft IP as soon as possible. Switch Sports Deluxe is interesting because I think you might actually be right about that one. I don't think it'd be Switch Sports Deluxe, though. I think it would just be Switch Sports 2 or Resort or whatever they end up calling it. I don't think that game needs a deluxe treatment, even though I mean, I guess it probably would include all of the stuff from the first game, but I think it would have enough added to be a proper sequel. And I do think that Switch Sports Resort, or 2, whatever they call it, like I said, that is something that I think, honestly, could even be a launch title for the console. Maybe it'd be a few months after release, but we usually get, like, one EPD4 kind of casual game. Now, usually, that's been a new IP. I don't know if they would want to continue an old IP alongside that, but, like, you know, we had Wii Sports, then we had Nintendo Land, then we had 1-2 Switch, right? So we'll probably get something along those lines. And I do think Switch Sports 2 in the first year makes a lot of sense with how well Switch Sports sold. So maybe that would just be the launch title. So if that's the case, you're totally right. We will probably see that in this reveal trailer, given how well that game did on Switch. All right, this is a great comment from Miki Weebu, basically saying, like, if they took the exact format of the Switch 2016 reveal, how would they translate that to 2024 Switch 2 reveal, right? Like, what games will be the analog for, like, Splatoon 2? What will be the new Splatoon 2 for this trailer? What will be the new Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for this trailer? So this is a great comment. Wanted to read through this. I think with how effective the Switch cycle was, they may want to replicate it, so I'll throw out my predictions of how they could do that. In the 2016 trailer, they drip-fed console features and how it can be used. I honestly don't know what they're cooking, but I'd like to see themes and backwards compatibility. It wouldn't surprise me if they actually wanted to reveal the price point now to rub in how well they could compete with $500 and now $700 plus consoles. As for games, they showed off 6, and I think they could very easily replicate that kind of roster. So first up, Breath of the Wild was in the reveal trailer. This time it would be Metroid Prime 4, kind of showing a cross-gen title. 2 and 3 next, going a bit out of order. They showed major third-party support with both Skyrim and NBA. This time around, I think some obvious bets are Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe Call of Duty, maybe more recent Final Fantasy, whether that's 14, 16, 7 Remake, whatever the case. 14 would be crazy. I would love to see 14. I'm a huge 14 fan. If they showed that in the Switch reveal trailer, that would be incredible. I do think that's something that we will see pretty early on the Switch's lifecycle, maybe even in that initial, like, hour-long showcase where a bunch of third parties come out and pledge support, because I think Yoshi P has actually said, like, we want to bring 14 to the next Nintendo platform, so I bet that's already in the works. That'll probably happen pretty early in the Switch 2's lifecycle. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe showed an upgraded version of a previous gen game, which I think lines up perfectly with the rumored Breath of the Wild remaster upgrade. I'm in complete agreement. I don't know if they would really want to show Breath of the Wild again, though. Like, I think Breath of the Wild remake is going to happen, or remaster, I should say, 4K, but I don't know if that's something they would want to advertise in this. Per se, maybe just very briefly, right? I guess it doesn't need to be any, like, in-depth reveal. If you remember, even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the January 2017 presentation, it actually wasn't even in that presentation. It was in, like, the sizzle reel, I think, and then they just kind of posted the trailer and announcements in a press release and on YouTube, right? So it wasn't even, like, a thing they talked about at the Switch 2017 presentation. Maybe they'll do the same thing with Breath of the Wild here. Probably the biggest for general audience, they first showed Odyssey, a new 3D Mario. This feels kind of obvious, but they'll show us a next-gen 3D Mario. And then finally, we then see Splatoon 2. I don't know what would really match this. Probably something multiplayer, because I've listed mostly single player, or maybe games with local co-op. My Xeno Brainrot says they could show Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, which would have multiplayer, but I don't know if that's console reveal material, but we'll see. I agree, as much as I love Monolith Soft, like, you know, top 3, probably top 1, frankly, Nintendo developer. I don't know if any of their games really make sense for the reveal of a console like this, because at the end of the day, Xenoblade is a niche franchise. But even then, with Xenoblade X, if we're seeing a Monolith Soft game in this reveal, it would probably be whatever their next new project is, right? Although Xenoblade X, I do think, will happen sooner than later. You're right about a multiplayer game, though. I think there will be some sort of multiplayer game in this. I mean, we've already read some comments about Mario Kart 9 or 10 being in this thing. That could make sense. Animal Crossing could also fit that, I think, as well. Frankly, Splatoon 4 could also happen. We just had the Grand Festival happen. We got the results in. Team passed 1. So I think I'll make a video talking about the future of Splatoon now that we kind of know what the theming of Splatoon 4 will likely be. So even that could maybe make sense in the as a little teaser in the reveal trailer. But you're right. I do think something multiplayer will definitely be shown here. I mean, that could even be Metroid Prime 4, though, right? If there is some sort of multiplayer PvP in that game. But great comment. Wanted to shout that out. Thank you for that. Nish Quick Pop says Prime 4, Monster Hunter, Elden Ring, and hopefully Xenoblade Chronicles X. More Xenoblade Chronicles X than I was expecting in this comment section. Also, if you can stream and play with no dock, I expect to see that first. Also, a nice new look at the Joy-Con. Is that a rumor? Is there a rumor that we will be able to stream our games from, let's say you're holding the Switch in handheld mode, right? And basically be able to stream them to your TV? Is that a rumor? I know there's been some talk of like dual screen experiences. I don't know if that was like people expecting this thing to have 2 screens, or if it was like a streaming thing so that they can have some like, maybe they can have like, you know, some DS on NSO, or maybe some Wii U games can kind of be ported more natively like Nintendo Land. That'd be interesting. And yeah, I agree that like if there is any weird gimmick with this console beyond just being, you know, the Switch 2, they'll probably show that pretty extensively in this reveal trailer. And yeah, they'll definitely focus on those new Joy-Con as well. If there are any major differences, if there's like hopefully like a better grip on the back, that's what I'm hoping for. Some more kind of ergonomics to hold the Switch with would be really nice. Mr. Cheesy Toad says, I predict that we'll see more of a tech presentation before we see a ton of new games. Switch 2 running games we've already seen like Mario Kart 8, Breath of the Wild. Then sometime in early 2025, we'll probably get a showcase of the games, including a new 3D Mario, maybe Legends EA, and possibly some type of Kirby game. That's interesting. Nintendo doesn't really do tech presentations like that, right? I can't think of the last time they had a presentation where they just talked details and showed like how Mario Kart 8 looks better than the last version, right? Like obviously they showed 8 Deluxe in the Switch trailer. That I just don't see them doing. That's very Sony coded. That's very Xbox coded. Nintendo is all about the new games and the new experiences you can have with new hardware. While I do think showing that the Switch 2 is backwards compatible will be something very important for them to do, I don't know if that's going to be like what they lead with. If anything, I think you might be right. Like maybe they do a tech presentation showing like how old games look better, but I think you have it backwards. I think it'd be the big showcase first, and then closer to release, they could do a more technical presentation showing how backwards compatibility works. That's how I would imagine that going. As for the games, I mean, a new Kirby game, totally. I would love to see that. I do wonder if they would want to announce if it's a 3D Kirby game. I do wonder if they would want to even announce that anywhere near close to a new 3D Mario, but we'll see. Omaru says here, I think it'll be similar to the Switch 2016 reveal trailer, which will open up with the new console's headline title, a new 3D Mario that will look like a major leap from Odyssey and Bowser's Fury. Very exciting. Love what you're thinking there. The rest of the trailer will showcase short snippets of titles being played in either handheld or dock mode in a variety of different places. New Switch 2 only first-party games, Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, and a wild card like a new Tomodachi Life that could be used to show some of the new console's social features. I love that idea. Also, I think you're the first person to actually comment Animal Crossing, which is interesting. I thought more people would be on board with that releasing, frankly, next year, because I do think either that or Splatoon 4 is coming out next year. I think that's pretty much a lock. A new Tomodachi Life, you're ringing my bell, man. I need a new Tomodachi Life, Nintendo, please. I would love to see that. Cross-gen first-party titles, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends EA, and maybe have someone pop in a Switch 1 at Tears of the Kingdom cartridge to show off backwards compatibility. Like, it's going to be the same cartridge slot, essentially. I guess it kind of has to be if there's going to be true backwards compatibility so that both cartridges can fit in the one slot. Unless they do some weird thing where there's 2 different cartridge slots, but I don't think they'll do that. Or if it's digital-only backwards compatibility, which would be a huge mistake on Nintendo's parts. But yeah, I totally agree. They'll have some older games maybe to just kind of show you, like, hey, look, this is a cross-gen or a backwards compatible console. Legends EA is interesting. We already talked about it a little bit. I'm not sold on it being cross-gen. However, I bet for Nintendo it'd be very tantalizing for them if they can convince Pokemon Company to use Legends EA as a Switch 2 game, even if it is on Switch 1, using it as a Switch 2 game to market the Switch 2. I'm sure Nintendo would be all for that, but it's unprecedented, right? That's completely unprecedented territory. But then again, Pokemon is in a very unprecedented territory in general with the fact that we haven't had a game in 2 years, which is just completely unheard of for the past 25 years, so maybe. And then finally, you say here, any combination of third-party titles to fill the Skyrim and NBA 2K17 role, so Call of Duty, Elden Ring, 7 Remake, Persona 3 Reload, Street Fighter 6, RE4 Remake, and sports titles like Madden 25 or EA FC 25 as well. So a lot of people saying Call of Duty, Elden Ring, and 7 Remake. I think all 3 of those are pretty likely as like Switch 2 games. I don't know if all 3 of them would necessarily be in the one trailer, but I think all 3 of them are pretty likely to come over at some point. Persona 3 Reload would be interesting, or maybe they do Metaphor instead. Frankly, maybe they do Persona 6. I don't want to get too crazy here, but I mean, I think a lot of us are expecting a Persona 6 reveal next year. Maybe Persona 6 is something that could be revealed at the Switch 2 reveal event. I think that's maybe possible. Maybe not necessarily in a trailer like this, like we're talking about, but when we get to that like big hour and a half presentation, Persona 6 I think is on the table for an announcement there if Nintendo wants to strengthen that partnership with Atlus and Sega. And then Madden 25, that makes sense as well. EA, can you believe there's no Madden game on Switch? That's crazy. They fumbled the bag. Like, quite literally, they fumbled. Vector Gaming says, I think it'll be a presentation, not just a trailer, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. I am pretty much in agreement with you there. Console initial reveals should be extremely hype, and a 3-minute trailer showing a slightly new looking Switch isn't hype because the hybrid concept is no longer new, so they have to bring the games to the initial reveal. I actually completely agree with that as well. I expect a full trailer for the new 3D Mario and at least one other first-party game. I expect some third-party stuff like AC Shadows, Monster Hunter Wilds, and maybe Cyberpunk and or Baldur's Gate 3. Then in January, another 45-minute presentation or longer to announce multiple big titles and multiplats. Yeah, I pretty much agree with your thought process here. I do think whatever form this reveal takes will be at least a little bit meatier than what we got in 2016, right? I do think that much is a given, basically. And then, yeah, if it releases in March or April, we'll probably go until January, get that big presentation. They'll be doing some marketing in between, September and then, right, maybe Game Awards, they show Metroid Prime 4 again, but I think January is where that next big presentation would be. MouseGirl03 says, I keep thinking of a hybrid between a casual trailer a la first Switch, but with a smallish overview of hardware and software, comparing Switch 1 and Switch 2. As for the official name, I'm really thinking Nintendo will go with Switch 2 or some variation. I know 4chan leaks are 99% fake, but Nintendo Switch version 2 is such a stupid name, but sounds completely realistic. If they deviate from the Switch branding, though, I think they need a quick, snappy, one-syllable word that covers the same idea. The wildcard name I'm predicting is Nintendo Click. So yeah, that's interesting. I think they're probably going to keep switching the name. I really don't know what they're going to call it, though. I don't think Switch 2 makes sense. That's not what Nintendo has done in the past. Maybe, new leadership with Furukawa, maybe they'll be like, okay, screw it, let's just call it Switch 2. Switch version 2 is funny. I actually talked about that in my video yesterday, kind of covering just a bunch of fake leaks that have been coming out over the past couple days. That does almost sound like something Nintendo would do. Like, oh, it's too easy to call it Switch 2. Let's call it Switch version 2. Like, that is like the goofy Nintendo spin on that we would all hate to see. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what they do with the name for this one for sure. Joining Iron says, I want to see a Switch 2 reveal trailer in a week's time, and I want it to launch on March 7, 2025 with Mario Kart 10. The following year, I want a new 3D Kirby game, possibly a sequel to Forgotten Land, and at the end of that year, I want Super Smash Bros. 6. Super Smash Bros. 6 is interesting as well because I think that's another one where, I mean, we don't really know how long Sakurai's been working on it. I assume it's not like super close, right? But maybe late 2026, right? Like that could line up if they kind of started working on it in like 2022, because Sora came out in October 2021. So let's say he took all of 2022 off and then started like pre-production and pre-planning in 2023. 2026 could work if it is just building off of Ultimate basically and just adding a ton of new characters and modes to that experience. 2026, honestly, that sounds right. Like holiday 2026 for Smash Bros. 6, that sounds right. Fabu Brick says that they should strike while the iron is hot. They can basically put out anything right now and look great next to Sony's blunders. You're right. You're totally right. Not a prediction, but you are totally right. Pixel Pikmin says, I'd like to see something Zelda, maybe an Ocarina of Time remake, and the announcement of Persona 3 Reload port for Switch 2. Persona 3 Reload definitely going to happen at some point. I just don't know if that's reveal trailer material, but maybe reveal event, like the full event that we're talking about, right? Like that could be there. If I'm going crazy enough to talk about a Persona 6 announcement, maybe they have like a whole Atlus Sega section, right? Where they announce a bunch of Yakuza games, but then they announce, Persona 3 Reload, they announce Metaphor ReFantazio, and then they cap it all off with like a very short teaser for Persona 6 in that segment. That could be very interesting. And then Ocarina of Time remake, maybe, but I do feel like next year's game is just Breath of the Wild remastered for Switch 2. That is my Zelda prediction for 2025. As much as I don't really care, like I don't care if Breath of the Wild gets a 4K remaster. I'll play it again. I'll be very happy to experience Hyrule once again, but I don't really care if it happens. But I do think that probably makes the most sense. But Ocarina of Time remake is gonna happen. I just don't know if it's next year or the year after. It's cooking though. I believe it's cooking. That is going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for commenting, all of you, for commenting on this community post. I thought it'd be fun to just read through what some of you are expecting to see / want to see from the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. Hopefully it happens this week. It is Monday morning, like I said, so maybe we'll get something this week. It doesn't feel like there's that much smoke right now from insiders or anything, but even back in 2016, where there really wasn't much smoke for that infamous Mario behind the curtain tweet that came out, I think we only heard about that like a few hours before it happened. So we'll see if it happens this week, but if not, you know, temper expectations. Maybe it'll happen in October. Maybe it won't happen until January. But either way, it is an absolute joy going on this hype train ride with you all. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch content, coverage, discussions, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. And until next time, folks, peace.